Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I am one of your hosts, Aaron, and with me as always is the other host, Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Good. The groundhog, what is it? No shadow, which means early spring?
That's great. I was aware that it was Groundhog's Day, but I didn't know unfortunately, I think there's a Super Bowl ad that's coming out that is a Groundhog's Day Super Bowl ad. So when you search for Groundhog's Day, just information about that comes up. So I wasn't sure if he did show his shadow or not.
I know it was early spring, but I always forget if it's saw shadow or not saw shadow. But either way, he predicted early spring. And Excellent. It does seem like maybe we're getting there. Like very early spring, because already the temperatures are like much warmer than they were like a couple of weeks ago. And I heard birds outside my window this morning.
Yes, a wonderful omen of things to come.
Yeah, so hopefully, I mean, you can never really tell for sure, just because the weather in the Midwest tends to like be a roller coaster ride this time of year. You'll be like, oh, it's spring this week, and then like next week you'll get hit by a ton more snow.
It's -5 outside.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully that's not the case this year, but you never know.
We got lots of news to talk about. There was a Sony State of Play, which we'll be focusing on, but before that there's some other bits of news to get to.
Yeah, and I've been playing a lot more Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, so we can talk a lot more about that game.
Yes,
which is great. So yeah, first up, one of the games that I had on my list of anticipated games, it has a free demo out on Steam right now. It's called Crypt Custodian, which is that Metroidvania that looks a little bit like kind of a top-down Zelda style game.
Yeah, it's giving me real Hyper Light Drifter vibe. I think I said that last week.
Yeah, it looks a little bit akin to something like that. What was that bird game?
Oh yeah, Death's Door. That's a great
Door, game. And the other one was Tunic. So if you're into that style of game, maybe download this on Steam and give it a shot.
Shout out to... I was re-listening to the soundtrack to Death's Door the other day, just because like the main theme is so good.
Yeah, it is.
Have you checked out this demo yet?
I have
Next Fest right now.
I have not downloaded it yet. I do want to try it, but I don't know. A lot of the time, if it's a game like this that I know I'm probably going to play anyway, I don't necessarily jump in and play the demo, especially if I'm like, I don't know, knee waist deep in Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Like it's hard to get me to sidetrack myself
I
even
agree.
to play something I'm anticipated. But
I tend to avoid demos of things I'm super excited about. That kind of leads into our next news item, which is Pepper Grinder also has a demo on Steam right now as part of Next Fest. When Pepper Grinder was that, I think it is a Metroidvania, but it's a Devolver Digital game where you're a little blue-haired girl with a little, what's the word I'm looking for? A drill.
Yeah,
drill. The word I could not remember. But it looks great. I am very excited about this. It's a little, looks like you can get different upgrades for your drill, and it reminds me of, I had a lot of fun back in the day. I had a Sega Genesis, and I would always rent a game that was called Taz in Space. It was a Looney Tunes game where you were Taz the Tasmanian Devil.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the sequel to, I think it's just a regular Taz game that I maybe played one or two times. But Taz in Space was cool because there were a bunch of levels where, similar to Pepper Grinder, there were like places of dirt, and then you could do your little spin thing to go in the dirt. And it felt really cool. And it's giving me big Taz and... No, maybe it was called Taz on Mars. I don't remember exactly what it was called. But this looks really fun to me. I'm excited to check this out when it comes fully. And if you're interested in it, there is a demo as part of Next Fest right now.
It made me think of Ori and the Will of the Wisps, because there's like parts in that game where you're sort of going through these like sandy areas. I don't know if you have a drill or not, but it's like a very small part of the game. It's just like one of the additional movement and like environment options they throw at you at one point. Whereas this is like a full game about that, and they probably do a lot more interesting things with it. So
they seem to do a lot of interesting things. I think you get a lot of upgrades for your drill, and it can do interesting, weird things. I'm excited to check it out. I actually might pick this up on Switch as opposed to Steam. because it looks great. I want to play it on a TV.
How would you describe this art style? It's like kind of low poly a little bit.
It almost reminds me of like a Newgrounds game from back in the day. Like it's 2D low poly. I think that's a good way to say it. It's you know what? It also kind of reminds me of like a slightly less or a slightly more low poly. What was that game where you were the red-haired girl who could jump a whole lot? You're climbing that mountain. Celeste. It actually looks a lot like Celeste.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
But like slightly more colorful, I think, than Celeste. Celeste had sort of a muted color palette.
Yeah, this looks great. I said this is the year of the Metroidvania. So,
yeah,
I mean,
it's true.
Throw another one on the pile.
Let's commit to, at the end of this year, doing that episode we were talking about where we do a top 10 Metroidvanias.
After we've gone through the gauntlet of Metroidvanias that are coming out this year.
Yeah, all of them that'll come out.
Mm-hmm.
And Silksong will be at the top.
We hope. So speaking of things that are out right now, did you catch this? Palworld has like more than 19 million players now.
Yeah, I saw Jeff Keighley tweeting about this. It's like the biggest third-party Game Pass release that Nintendo has ever had. Or not, sorry, that Microsoft has ever had.
Yeah, so they finally got the Xbox numbers this last week. So they're like including Steam and Xbox, it's 19 million players. I think it was like 12 million for Steam and then
Crazy.
7 million for Xbox. So that game just keeps chugging along.
Yeah, we both downloaded it.
Yeah, I know. We checked it out. I feel like it's, especially if you have Game Pass, it's just like such a low barrier to entry. And you're just like, well, everybody's talking about it. I might as well try it.
Might as well. Throw it on,
but the Steam numbers, like the sales, like not even just like, people had to spend $30 on this.
Yeah, it is crazy that it was $30 and so many people did buy it. I think it would have gotten even more. I mean, obviously it would have gotten more if it was like $15, but I mean, it's crazy the numbers it's doing.
Yeah, it is crazy to me. And I mean, we always talk about how Nintendo's reacting to this because it's like, they're doing more interesting things with a very similar concept to what they have. But yeah, how will they shake up Pokemon going forward? Because they realize, one, not only is there like a huge appetite for this style of game, but also, what if you put Pokemon on Steam? Like, would you have access to 12 million players? Like, think of the sales, Nintendo.
I mean, so for sure, the next Pokemon game is like super in development because they pump those things out. It seems like they're constantly making a new one.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I wonder how much of a pivot they can do after seeing Palworld. I don't know when the next, something we talk about, it seems like every episode now is Switch 2 stuff. And I wonder if they are getting a big Pokemon title ready for launch of Switch 2. That's something we haven't really discussed.
It would seem like that would time out, right? Like, I guess I forget when the last one came out, but I feel like it was long enough ago that if they had one for this fall, it would not be shocking.
We don't currently have one we know about, right? I feel like there's always one that's almost coming out.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it would not be crazy to see like over the summer some sort of Nintendo Direct where they announce a new Pokemon game and say, "Hey, this is coming this fall." So I mean, maybe, but here's the thing: what if they see this and they're like, "Okay, crossovers are a big thing. What if we did the crossover of crossovers and it was Pokemon and what's the not Stardew Valley? I keep wanting to say Stardew Valley. The other one.
Harvest Moon?
No, it's the Animal Crossing. Why could I not think of Animal Crossing?
Whoa.
Anyway, what if that's the thing? They see the success of Palworld and they're like, okay, we're going to do a crossover with Pokemon and Animal Crossing.
That actually would be, I think, a lot of people's ideal game. Because a lot of people, I think, they love the Pokemon, but they don't really want to, like, do the battling. They just want to hang out with all their pets. And I think that's actually a genius idea that could make us millions of dollars if we worked at Nintendo.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I worked at Nintendo, I would be pitching that game very hard right now. And
it's such a, now that you say it, it's like so clearly what they should do.
yeah, and it seems a little obvious, but also like, how do you handle, so you've got animals in both cases. What if Pikachu is like fighting Tom Nook at one point? I mean, I don't even know. But I mean, you could have the Pokemon helping you build stuff. I don't know.
Well, do you think they would be, in this vision you have, would the Pokemon be your villagers, or would they be just an add-on and there would still be Animal Crossing villagers? And
I feel like they would
also have Pokemon.
I feel like they would be the workers working on your island or whatever space that they have for you, like a camp type thing.
Yeah.
And you've got villagers that are coming to stay with you. And maybe you can challenge them to a Pokemon battle.
That's interesting.
I mean, there's a lot of different things you could possibly do.
What about this? Animal Crossing X Pokemon Zoo, where you have it's like a Jurassic Park type thing.
Ooh, yeah, that's a very good idea.
So then you still have villagers that come, and maybe they are the workers at the zoo, but also you're always trying to get new Pokemon to make a little event spaces and stuff.
That would be crazy. Yeah, if you could somehow come up with a way for the game to feel like quintessentially both Pokemon and Animal Crossing at the same time.
That's the cinch.
Yeah. And that would be like way more up Nintendo's alley than something like Palworld, because like Nintendo like considers themselves a wholesome company. They don't want to see like, you know, have to put a blur over the Pokemon as you like gut them with a knife or like, you know, give you a gun to run around and shoot them in the face. Like, they're not going to ever do something like that with Pokemon. But, like, I mean, arguably two of their biggest franchises in terms of, like, I mean, Animal Crossing was so huge in 2020. And Pokemon, like, every time a new one comes out, is, like, a huge seller for them.
True.
I mean, it just makes sense to combine them.
It is crazy. I mean, I feel like something Animal Crossing is imminent because it was such a huge phenomenon during the pandemic. And they have this new console on the way. And they're like, how do we get people to buy this new console? Well, so many people who even didn't play video games, like so many people I saw on Instagram who like I would never have thought would own a Switch, got a Switch during the pandemic to play Animal Crossing. And I feel like they have to know that. So that's like, I think not a crazy thing to suggest that that might be one of the launch titles is some sort of Animal Crossing thing.
I mean, obviously, if we're just pitching it now and they have not considered this as a possibility, it's too late to pivot and make this game before the Switch 2 launches. But like, ideally, Nintendo's smart enough to realize that those two are like perfect partners for each other and they should do something with that. But I mean, I feel like we're all just reacting to the success of Palworld at this point instead of like, being more forward thinking.
They're definitely smart enough to open up another Super Nintendo world.
They are. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but I think this is awesome. And I agree. Kind of excited about, you know, one being a little bit closer than Japan, for instance. I guess there's one in California, but
there is one in California, and I don't know if this incorporates because there's that new Donkey Kong one, and I think that's only being built at the Japan one, and I'd assume it will be at like come to other locations. But I think what they're the pipeline of this is they always pilot stuff in Japan, and then they will bring it over to America.
Yeah, so I have the feeling that is how they'll start doing stuff.
Imagineer all of the stuff and get it ready to go in Japan, and then it will open, and then they'll allocate land and like resources for the California and Florida ones. But did they say when this is opening, or this is just announced?
I didn't see if they gave like an expected.
Oh, this is part of that Epic thing.
Yeah, Universal's Epic Universe. There was like this was just like one piece of like a whole bunch of stuff that they had. So
because they're bringing back the Dark Universe, but only for this Epic zone, or what is this even? It's like it's a theme park. It's in Florida?
Yeah. So Universal Studios in Florida. I've never been there, but
nor have I.
It does seem like kind of cooler than Disney World at this point, because they have all this, like they have a world for like Harry Potter stuff if you like that, and they have like a Jurassic Park ride. So like basically think of any like Universal Studios property, and they've got like some sort of tie in there. So it does seem like a Disney World that's a little bit more appealing to like adults and not like children, although children would probably enjoy it as well. So like instead of going on, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean as like the most, you know, maybe adult-ish type of ride that you could ride at Disney World, you've got like access to like Jurassic Park and like all this other stuff. So like Universal, they're very much doing sort of the Disney World thing where it's a lot of rides like that. But again, like the properties that they're working with are a little bit more appealing to like older people.
It's interesting.
Yeah, and then throw Nintendo in there and you can like, I don't know, hit everything. Because was it Universal? It was Universal that did the Mario movie. Am I wrong in that?
I think you are right. It was...
I don't remember. I could be wrong. I don't know. But either way, if you were going to make a Nintendo theme park, Universal is the obvious pairing because you're not going to go to Disney for that.
Right.
Nintendo thinks of themselves as like the Disney of video games. So they're a little bit maybe a competitor in that space. I guess I don't know. But yeah, Universal seems like a cool place to go, especially once all this other stuff launches.
Zach, would you be surprised to learn that Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth has sold 1 million copies in the first week, and it's the fastest selling game in the franchise ever?
I wouldn't, just because I think it's so good, but also like the previous one got such good word of mouth that I think more people are being turned on to this series, in particular because the last game was sort of a good like starting point because it was a new character.
That was, I think, what a lot of people, because before Like a Dragon, the only thing I could tell you about Yakuza games was there were like 7 of them. And so it was very intimidating because they've just been, a lot of them I think didn't come to America. And so you would just see like, oh, Yakuza 6 is out now, or like this Yakuza is in the past.
Yeah, they had like, they would go up to 6 and then it would be like Yakuza 0 and you'd be like, what? Yeah. What does this mean?
What's happening? There's so much lore.
What order do I play this?
But then Like a Dragon came out and it was like, this is where you start. And it was great. And the only thing that I didn't jive with was the combat, but it seems like they've really reworked that and it's a lot smoother now.
Yeah, they've made some nice quality of life improvements there. Like one of the things that bothered us was the characters randomly moving around. And sometimes that would result in like you would be targeting someone sort of in the back and then like somebody would wander into the space as you were going to attack them. And they would just like, you'd run into them and they just like push you and your attack wouldn't do anything.
Well, also it would be a thing where like it's a known thing in Yakuza games where if you like pick up a thing on the street like a bicycle or something or a sign, you can use that to like bash on people. But like you would be in the situation where you're like, man, there's a bike in between me and the enemy, so I'm definitely going to run into this bike and my character will pick it up. I have no control over that because he's just going to be, it's in his line of sight and then it's going to happen. So you get everything ready to go, you commit your actions, but in that time, either you or the enemy has moved slightly, and now the bike isn't in your path to get to the enemy, and so you don't do that. And so it's just like, what's the point of this?
Well, and I was just going to say that they completely removed, like, being nudged off of your attack, like your line of sight of attack. For this game, I think they realized that people didn't like that, where you would target somebody and then like one of the other enemies would like randomly wander into your line of attack, and just like as you went to run up to the person you were targeting, they would just like push you and you'd be like, oh, well, your attack failed. Like they realized that was not fun for people and people didn't like that, so they just removed it entirely. And now, because you can like maneuver your characters around a little bit, like it's like the improvement going from the first Mario and Rabbids game to the second one, where you actually have like a space of movement where you can maneuver your characters kind of freely.
Change, yeah.
And so, yeah, that was a smart move. And now they've like, I don't remember if this was, I probably was part of the last game as well, but like now you have all these different attacks that sort of like fire off in a line. And so you can hit multiple enemies at once. And so you can maneuver your character and line them up to pull off those attacks that hit multiple characters at once. And so that's very good as well. So I'm enjoying the combat. And I have to say, I have only played a very little amount of like the previous Yakuza games that feature Kiryu instead of Ichiban. And so it's like the brawler style combat. Like I played, what is it called? Like a Dragon Ishin last year. And I played a little bit of one of the other ones. And I did not love the brawler style combat. And really? I think I vastly prefer the combat in this game to those. So yeah, I think it's been very fun to just like work on leveling up your characters and everything. But yeah, it just like there's so much to do in the game. I guess I don't know if we're done with the news section and are just ready to talk about Yakuza for a while, but
we can. We can have a Yakuza segment if before we get to the state of play if you want. I'm ready to talk about it.
Yeah, so it's just like one of those games where everything you do feeds into some sort of like system or some manner of like leveling up your character. And like I talked previously about how there are those like challenges for like personality traits where as you swim for so many meters or run around, for so many meters, you like build up some sort of stat, right? It feels a little bit akin to something like Skyrim where everything you do is building your character in some way and it's like leveling you up in some capacity. And that goes for like every activity that exists in the game as well. And there's so many different things to do. I probably spent like a solid like 30 hours just within like the first like 4 or 5 chapters.
Wow.
And I believe there are like 14 chapters to this game. I just got to chapter 6, which is where you unlock the Animal Crossing style game.
Oh man.
It's a game within a game. And like, I'm like, this is just the game now. Like who cares about the story and going back to the main island and doing stuff? Like this is my game now. I'm just playing this. And I felt the same way when I unlocked the Pokemon style game, the Sujimon League stuff, which I unlocked, I think the chapter before that. I was like, oh, this is just the game now. Like I'm now playing a Pokemon game within Like a Dragon. And it's crazy to me that they have so many of those. Like every time you hit a new story beat, it's like, oh, here's some additional like sub stories for you to go do. But also here's like some new interesting element, whether it's like unlocking the job system where you can like swap characters' classes basically. And it's really interesting because with the job system, as you level up and unlock new skills within that job, there's like you can inherit skills. So if say I wanted to do, there's like a new class, I think that's like, I forget what it's called, but you're basically like a surfer. You have like a wetsuit on and you're like using a surfboard. And I haven't tried that class out yet, but say I wanted to try that out for a while and level it up. If I found like a cool skill on that class that I was using, and I wanted to go back to the hero class for Kasuga, I could just like inherit a skill or two from that class to make him a little bit more well-rounded and to give him like, maybe I need like the ability to deal damage of some type of like elemental damage or something like that. And that class had it, and I could use that skill, and that would be awesome. Like, because one of the other classes I think is exclusive to Kasuga is the freelancer one. And I was messing around in the job system looking at like what skills I could inherit. And he has one that's like from the freelancer class, which I think is the one you start out with, that is like a grapple move. And grapple moves break enemy guard. So if there's an enemy that's like holding their arms up and they have like a little shield icon, that means it's going to be hard to like deal damage to them unless you have somebody who can do like a grapple move.
Yeah.
Kiryu can do that, and Chitose can do, I think, has a move like that, but Kasuga did not until I added that skill from the freelancer class. So it's very cool how you can sort of mix and match some of the skills like that.
What's your main class that you have right now for Kasuga?
It's the hero class is the one I was using. I looked up, I did this with the last game too. I was like, what's the best class for each character? And it seems like the default class is like the one that's technically the best for each of them. But like in the last game, I like mixed and matched. Like I made Adachi, like the guy that strums a guitar and is basically a support character that can like heal and give like or reduce status effects or something like that. And that ended up working out really well. And I feel like I will eventually mess around with them because I believe you can level them up to like level 99.
Whoa.
And as you're running around, you can like find these free magazines. There's just like stuff scattered all over the map to pick up. And some of it is just like some sort of materials that you can use to like craft some sort of potion or something like that. But some of it's like a free magazine. And if you use those in your inventory, it will like build up whatever job you currently have equipped. And so you can use stuff like that to level up your jobs as well. And those will, again, make it so that you can equip different skills on different classes. So it might even be a thing where you're like, okay, I'm going to swap to this job for a while and level it up and kind of grind for a level with this. Because that also, I think, builds your main character's level and skills for your main character as well, even just like separate to the job system. And so you do that and then you're like, okay, now I have this really good skill from this one class. I'm going to swap back to my hero class and just inherit that skill. And like there's sort of the social links system, I guess, to this as well, where you're building up your relationship with your companions. And as you do that, you get like little bits of story as well. It almost feels a little bit akin to like the loyalty missions from like a Mass Effect style game, where they're not as involved. They're more like you're talking to them and you'll have like a little cutscene where you have a chat and talk about different stuff. But there is like a payoff to those where there is a little bit of a like story segment with them. And as you do that, you gain additional options during combat with them where like if you're standing near them, when you queue up an attack, they'll like attack together and you get this like combo attack that looks really cool.
It's like those combo attacks from the upcoming Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Yeah,
so there's just like there's so much to the game, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't tried this, but you can, when you load into the game, there, like, you know how it has like your, you know, continue and settings and quit and all those options that you can click on. One of them is just the Dandoko Island. So maybe you can just play that separate. Yeah, I don't even know, but it's, I don't know. It's awesome. I spent a bunch of time last night trying to build up my island and make different things. And you get like guests that will come, and you're basically building a resort for them. So you put like little housing down for them, and they'll have like different things that they want. And as long as you sort of fulfill that based on what you've built on your island, they'll be happy and they'll stay for a few days, and you can like greet them and give them like souvenirs and stuff, and it'll make them happy. And then they'll spend a bunch of money, because some of the stuff you build is stuff that they can like spend money on. And so you're building up money that you can then use to build more stuff. And it's just, I don't know, I've been having a lot of fun with that. And I can definitely see why it's like that is probably the replacement for like the, what was it, Ichiban Confections stuff from the previous game.
Oh, the thing where you were trying to run a business or whatever.
Yeah, it's completely sort of secondary to like the main story, but it's like something where you can make a bunch of money. And by doing so, just because everything feeds into everything, it like will build you up if you take the time to go through it. And there's like an additional island that's sort of just off your Dandoko Island that is like for the Sujimon. So basically, if you've been playing the sort of Pokemon style Sujimon League stuff where you run around the map and you not capture, but you gain new Sujimon for your collection, basically. And then you can go and battle other trainers, sort of similar to how you would in something like Pokemon. On this other island, you can like put them to work to like over time, they will harvest resources for you, or you can train them up so that they will increase their level as well. And so it's this whole other section that is just tied to like building up your Sujimon. And so everything is interconnected and ties together in such a smart way. And it's like, it's been a long time since I've been like so lost and immersed in a game and like just want to do absolutely everything. So yeah, I'm absolutely loving this game.
Does it make you want to go to Hawaii?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's like with it being cold and gross outside, it's been a nice little bit of escapism to be able to run around Hawaii in my spare time.
How does the what's it called? The Segway work? Is it something you can summon and you just constantly have?
Yeah, so you just like hit down on the D-pad as you're running around and it just automatically pops up and you can just ride it immediately. Sort of similar to how you would just summon your Sparrow in Destiny.
That's great.
And you can like pull up the map and you're like, I want to go here. So you'll put down a little marker. And then when you exit the map, if you're on your Segway, you just hit the right trigger and it'll just automatically drive you there.
That is because another thing I was sort of not into in the original, or Like a Dragon, was sometimes I would have a quest and I would have to run all the way across the map and sort of dodge out of random encounters. And I wanted to be able to go faster, but I didn't want to take a taxi because I didn't want just like to watch a cutscene.
Yeah,
so that's very cool.
Even the taxi I feel like has improved because I don't remember this from the previous game, but in this one, you don't have to like actually run to a taxi. You just bring up the map and you're like, I need to go here. Let me find the nearest taxi. I'm just going to hit a button on it and it'll be like, would you like to taxi there? And you're like, yes. And it will just fast travel you there really quickly. And then you just go from there. So even that's like, I feel like improved from the previous game.
Zach, before we move on to the state of play, I want to talk about Apex for a second.
Okay.
Because if you didn't know, people listening, the cover story for this month's Game Informer is Apex Legends because it's the 20th anniversary. And they've got a lot of details about what's happening in Season 20, which is about a week and a couple days away from when we were recording this. A lot of people speculated we were going to get a new map this year, or this season, because they've heavily teased that there's a new city map that's going to be, I think it's like called Angel City from Titanfall. But it seems like that's not coming in Season 20, at least initially. What is coming, though, is every map is getting sort of a reskin, redesign, where it's kind of 20th anniversary colorings and stuff. And also, they are pretty significantly changing the armor system in Apex, where you no longer will see armor like laying around and you'll be able to pick it up and all of a sudden have blue or purple armor. Now, all armor will be accrued, basically. So Evo armor was always, if you did like damage on someone, it would like level you up or whatever. But now that's basically the only way to level up your armor is to do different random tasks like doing damage or doing like skill-based things. Like I forget which class it is where you can like look up in the sky and determine what a care package is, but that will also level up your armor. And then there's also like armor, not armor upgrades, but like little caches that you can pick up, which will give you evolution, but it's not technically an armor. It's just like stuff that will increase your armor level. But bigger than that is every time your armor upgrades, you can pick a perk now. So an example would be, they talked about the Loba perk, which is when you go to blue armor, you can pick either, I think it was like your zone of being able to pick stuff up gets bigger with your black market, or you can pick up 3 items instead of 2 items from a black market at any given time. And then when you get to the second level, or third level rather, the purple armor, you get to pick another 2 perks, or one of 2 perks. So they're adding, like, every legend now is going to have possibly 4 perks they can pick from. So they're adding like 100 something perks. It's going to be kind of crazy. And then, I don't know, there's a bunch of other stuff. The perks thing is the most interesting thing because we don't know all the perks for all the legends. There's another one I saw that where Gibraltar can either have a shield that lasts for like 5 extra seconds, or he can have a significantly smaller shield that maybe can only fit like 1 or 2 people in it, but he gets the recharge on it way faster, so he's constantly throwing down shields. There's a bunch of really interesting game-changing things that are coming, I think, and it's a very exciting time to play Apex Legends.
Yeah, that's cool. It sounds like more ways to kit out your character as you go.
So another, they're going to have a limited time event, a new game mode called, I think, Straight Shot. And this one is pretty interesting. So previously they had that 3 strikes where it was super long games where you had to die like 3, your entire team had to die 3 times in a row. This is like for fast games. So in Straight Shot, which I think is what it is called, there's no jumping out of a plane. You spawn on the map and the bubble is already kind of small. And also, all of the weapons you pick up are already kitted out, so they already have all their attachments. So it makes for like super like immediate action games because you don't have to pick where you're dropping, and all of your weapons are already kitted out. So it's going to be. I think I actually am more interested in this than that 3 strikes gameplay. I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, it's just really streamlining the whole experience. Which makes sense considering so many people just like drop immediately into a hot zone to like get into the action as fast as possible. And they're like, well, if I make it, I make it. If I don't, whatever, I'll just, start a new game and try it again. Yeah.
Here's the other thing about that Straight Shot mode is they're saying that you don't get kicked back to the lobby if you don't want to. So if you're playing that mode, there's never like go back to the lobby, everybody queue up and go ready again. Now you can just, it'll like when you die, it automatically starts queuing you up for the next game.
That's a smart, cool thing. That's a smart move.
I'm excited about it. I still have been checking out Apex. I will log in and play like 2 matches just every once in a while, immediately die in one of them usually. But I'm still leveling up my battle pass every once in a while at like odd times of the day where I just like have 15 minutes to spare. But it's still something I'm pretty interested in. I'm very excited for this season 20. We'll probably talk a lot more about it when it happens. I don't think it's this week. I think it's next week. Because I think there's still like 9 days left in the season 19 season. So stay tuned for us to talk more about that. But I'm pretty excited for everything they announced.
Yeah, I haven't played it in a while. Like we got really into it there for a while last fall, and I've fallen off as I've been playing a bunch of other games. But yeah, I would get back into this. I'm still extremely into Like a Dragon, so I don't know that I will jump into this right away. And then after that is Final Fantasy. So
I know it's hovering on the horizon. It's big on the horizon. And so also, I read the embargoes, all the press embargoes for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. End on the 22nd of February. So that's when we're going to start getting reviews, which is like a week before the game comes out, which I think is very promising. Usually if someone's not like, if a studio is like iffy on a game or they're not sure about stuff, they'll make the embargoes lift like on the day it releases or whatever. But they're giving people basically a week to talk about it, which I think is a very positive sign.
One thing I forgot to put in here is the game's out this week. Have you seen things about the Suicide Squad game?
One of the headlines I saw was that Kyle Hilliard, who is for Game Informers, his headline was like, I'm playing Suicide Squad and I don't know how I feel about it, and I'm still playing it. I've heard a lot of people. Some people are like, oh, the story is really interesting, but a lot of people are like, I don't know about this. I've watched a lot of the plot on TikTok. A lot of people have been uploading the cutscenes. Those seem really interesting from just like a story perspective, but I have heard the gameplay is maybe lacking, and it's just like a lot of live service stuff that's not interesting. And it is like it suffers from being a multiplayer game is the main thing I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, people love to hate game as service games, and so there is a little bit of that, like, oh, this is a game as service, so automatically I'm gonna hate this and rail on it. And like, I get why, but also, like, some of the people are saying stuff like, I know somebody from IGN was like, oh, the story missions were not that interesting, and I was like, okay, you played Destiny, right? Like, name me one story mission from Destiny that you would describe as interesting. It's like hardly the point. But I feel like they're doing a lot more interesting things, like you said, from like the cutscenes and everything. Like you and I have no interest in this game. Like, we don't really have a dog in this fight in terms of that. So like, I'm not going to play it. I don't really care about the characters or the universe, but like, yeah, everybody seems to hate this game.
It's crazy. I'll see clips, because like the most important parts are the parts where, like, because it's called Kill the Justice League,
right?
So the
parts, you know, what's going to happen.
The parts that make it on, spoilers, I guess, if you can't figure out what's going to happen, but the parts that make it onto TikTok are the parts where they're actively killing the Justice League, which is kind of crazy to see. Just like Harley Quinn shoot Batman in the face, and it's like it's not like a trick or anything. Like, he is legitimately dead, which is kind of a crazy thing they're letting them do. Yeah,
and that's one of the reasons why people that are like super into like DC stuff, but also just like the previous Arkham games, because this is set in the same universe as the Arkham games, and so a lot of people don't like it because of that. They feel like the story has been like very like not good for, like, you know, DC stuff where you're like literally killing the heroes. Like, people don't want that so much.
Well, not to spoil too much, but I will say that they're based on at least the clips that I've seen. There is some multiverse type stuff going on in this.
Yeah. I think, and to an extent, that's also like part of the like, one, multiverses are just like a whole problem in and of themselves. But it makes it so, I think with this game, like, the villain, instead of it being like, oh, here's a new season, here's a new villain to go after, it's supposedly like the same villain, because you have different multiverse versions of the villain.
It's Brainiac.
Yeah, and so you're just fighting Brainiac over and over again.
I think it's two Brainiacs, because I think it's two Brainiacs that one of them is in a different universe, and they learned how to communicate via, like, through. So you're fighting two, but they also are, what's the word I'm looking for? Possessing other people or whatever. I don't know. It seems crazy. The gameplay does not really seem fun to me, unfortunately. I'm sorry to say. But it's not something I'm interested in.
It didn't look that bad to me. I watched Shroud play a bunch of it, and he was like actually really into it. And like, he was enjoying the gameplay and talking about how like the gearing up was like more interesting than some of the other like game as service games he's played recently. And like, I guess I'll take his word for it, because I'm not going to play this game. But it was weird to see like such hatred for it in every other corner of the internet, but then to like go to Twitch and watch people who are actually playing it be like actually into it. But it does just kind of look like a shooter set in like a superhero universe, which
the
seems
loot
strange.
System, I think, didn't need to be there, because one of the things I saw was like a TikTok where somebody got like a shotgun and they looked at the lore for it, and it was like, oh, this is Poison Ivy's ice shotgun, and it's like, why would Poison Ivy have an ice shotgun?
Yeah,
this doesn't make any sense.
I saw that too. Yeah, I think you can like get skills or like somehow inherit some sort of skill by doing something related to Poison Ivy, and yeah, that was one that like didn't make any sense. And there was also like another thing that people had a problem with lore wise, where, I guess, spoilers, but when you go kill Green Lantern, I think the like King Shark character like picks up the ring and puts it on and suddenly has Green Lantern powers, and you're like, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I think it has to pick you.
Yeah, and so people have a lot of problems with the decisions they've made, not just because of like it feels like they don't really understand the lore of the universe, but also it's like not recognizing or understanding the previous games that you've set, you know, in this universe. But like it almost has the feel of like when Disney took over Star Wars, you're like, I guess it's Lucasfilm, but it's not really Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Because this is Rocksteady, but like it's not the Rocksteady that made the Arkham games.
Yeah.
And so it feels like somebody not really knowing the lore or being as like careful and fan friendly with it as people would like them to be. And so it just sort of has the feel of it's that in name only and not something that they've made satisfying for people that love the franchise. But so I get that. I understand where they're coming from with that, but yeah, I don't know. I don't need a game of service like this in my life. So, also, I don't really care about the characters at all. So this is just not for me anyway, but I don't know. I thought it was interesting because so many people have been talking about it this last week. I don't know if people tried it out and were like, yeah, this is a no-go. And then they went back to Palworld.
We got to talk about this state of play.
Okay, let's get into it. I guess we just start off with Death Stranding 2.
It's the biggest thing. And okay, so I have not played. I played like maybe 3 hours of Death Stranding. I need to go back. I have it on the Epic Game Store because it was free one time. So at some point I think I will boot it up and just try to get through it. I didn't super mesh with the main gameplay mechanic of having to like.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like
the walking is a problem.
There are interesting ideas there, especially with like the Strand game elements. Yeah. But like everything else you do isn't super fun to do.
Yeah.
But the cutscenes and like the story is like crazy to see.
Which seems to be the case for this one as well. And I don't know how much they've I mean, there's a part in the trailer where they're showing him around his mobile ship and it's like, this is the room where all your guns are. So now, I mean, I don't know how guns were, if they were prevalent in the first one, but it seems like maybe there's going to be more combat in Death Stranding too.
Yeah, maybe that'll make the gameplay more interesting. Because I played through the last one and like there were so many like crazy out there interesting ideas that kept you going, but like the gameplay itself was just like something you had to get through and do. So hopefully it's more interesting this time around. But yeah,
I love this trailer.
This trailer was crazy. There were so many like weird things to it. Like, you know, the hands around Fragile's neck that she has like, I don't know, it's like a collar that is just like hands. And they will like emote for her or like light a cigarette for her or like cover her face like a mask. And it's just like really weird.
There was a part in this trailer that made me exclaim out loud while
really?
I was watching it.
What part?
When Fragile like turns the corner and she has that puppet on her shoulder and it started talking and it was like low frame rate, I out loud was like, hell yes. Because that is insane.
It is insane. And so I think supposedly that puppet was like the face of it was modeled after some director, maybe.
Oh, really?
I can't remember which one.
I'd believe it.
But like the first character I think you see in this trailer, who's like in this room doing some weird thing with Fragile, that is, I think, George Miller, the director of Mad Max. But I think it does the thing that like the last one did, where it just like uses their face, like he scanned them in, but then they have like a different voice actor to actually play the part.
We also saw Elle Fanning as well as in this.
Yeah, do you think she did the voice though?
I don't know. I feel like he mostly will just like have a day with people, and he's like, "Here's my weird studio. Let's go get coffee somewhere and talk about movies, and also stand in this room for 30 minutes, and we're gonna scan every part of your body, and that's all you have to do. Then you can peace out." He's done that with so many people. Like I would assume Jordan Peele is gonna show up at some point. I probably Timothée Chalamet. I've seen him take pictures with Timothée Chalamet, so he's probably gonna pop up at some point. Just like Kojima is just like anybody who's interested in because he's Kojima, he can just be like, hey, come to Japan. And people are like, yeah, I'm definitely going to come to Japan. This sounds great. And then he gets to scan him, and then he just gets to use their likeness. And it's just
what if he has it just like in a van, and he's like, I'm just going to road trip, and we're going to drive around, and just random people, hey, stop on in, be in Death Stranding too.
I would believe he would do that. I'm into this. This made me want to give the first one another try, and maybe there's a way I can play it in a way that does not frustrate me. Because I do want to know the story of it just to get ready for this. But
well, I mean, I don't know if you'll even understand it by the time you finish playing it.
The other thing they talked about was like he was like in person with the head of PlayStation or whatever, and he's like, also, I'm now making a new action espionage game called Physint, Physint, and it's going to be like really, I mean, he loves to say this, but breaking the boundaries between games and movies. And he's working with Columbia Pictures. And, you know, Kojima made his name by making spy espionage things. Metal Gear, obviously, is the most famous one. He said it's like 2 years out or something like that, or it's not at any time going to come soon. But I think people are super excited for this as well.
Yeah, like what could it mean that they're like working with like a movie studio? And
I think it means super long cutscenes.
Is that just transcending the barrier between games and movies, where you make basically a movie that has some like random parts where you actually play the game?
Wasn't it Metal Gear Solid 4? I think it was Metal Gear Solid 4 where it had like a cutscene that was an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah, he's known for super long cutscenes already. So I don't think if he tries to do that again, I don't think that is a successful transcending of barriers between games and movies, because he's already done that.
This is going to be tricky though, because if I sit down to play this game and I have like, I've just had dinner and it's like 7 p.m. or something, and I'm only going to play for like maybe 2 hours. If I accidentally walk into a cutscene that's a feature-length movie, like, am I going to be able to pause that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
If I open a door and all of a sudden I have to watch a 2-hour movie at like 9 p.m., I don't know if that's a good gameplay mechanic.
Yeah, well, that is like one of the criticisms of this style of thing that he does. But yeah, you're a little bit committed, I think, if you like launch into a cutscene. And the thing is, you don't know how long it's going to be. It's not like a YouTube video where you hover over the little timeline. You're like, okay, how much time is left in this? No, you're like, strap in. It's just going to go until it stops.
But this was great. This is probably the highlight of the show. They also showed a bunch of gameplay for a game called Stellar Blade, which seems like an action beat 'em up that's very... What did you think of this? I actually was a little bit interested in this. It's kind of like that Nier Automata, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say the sort of analogy that I keep seeing from everyone is Nier meets like Bayonetta or like Devil May Cry. So it's sort of, it looks like the universe and sort of vibe of like one of the Nier games, but like the combat and gameplay of like a Bayonetta.
Yeah, super stylish.
Super stylish action game type of a thing. It seems cool. It's isn't this like an exclusive to PlayStation? It's like a game Sony's publishing.
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, very interesting. It's coming out in April. So I guess you got a little bit of time there between Final Fantasy and this game coming out. But I don't know. I'm curious to see how well this does. It is like a new thing, which I mean, got to give them credit for not like just trying to milk another franchise and actually coming up with something new. So yeah, I'm curious about this game.
Something I'm curious about. I never got into Dave the Diver, but I've heard it's really, really good. Did you ever play it? I don't remember.
No, I was interested in it, but I never got around to playing it.
They had that Dredge DLC for it, and now they also are having a Godzilla DLC where you can interact with Godzilla and maybe play as Godzilla also, it seems like, and fight other kaiju. Yeah,
it wasn't clear to me. Like, are you just like catching and carving up Godzilla to serve in your sushi restaurant?
Good question. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what's going to be happening, but that's interesting. They also showed some stuff from that Zenless Zone Zero, which is that Hoyoverse. This also looked really crazy to me. And I don't know, this one I think is this is not turn-based, I don't think. I think this is a brawler or like a fighting game similar to Genshin, except it's set in like an urban environment where like you have guns and stuff as opposed to the fantasy environment of Genshin Impact. This looked interesting to me. I tried out Genshin Impact, but I bounced off of it for some reason, and I'm interested in this. I'm interested to check it out.
I briefly tried that. What was the other one? The turn-based one.
Oh yeah, what was that called? I don't remember, but I know what you're talking about.
I don't remember what it was called, but that like had the sort of just with like the stylish action of like the different moves that they would do. That felt like they were going for something sort of Persona-like, but without the personas, which was interesting. But it was the one on the train, Honkai Star Rail.
Yes, that's what it was.
I didn't play very much of it though, so I don't know. These like free to play games, like I'm always a little bit turned off by them because it's like at some point they're going to want me to pay a lot of money for different random things, and I'm not going to want to do it.
There's going to be a timer. You got to pay money to make or less, and it's going to be not
you
fun.
Need to like stock up on characters that are more powerful than the free ones you get, so you have to start spending money. And it's just like, I don't really want to get into that. So
probably the other super interesting, the only other thing I was interested in, I mean, they did a Metro game that's going to be in VR. That's interesting to me. I think is a perfect match for a VR game. But the thing I want to talk about is this Judas. We got a bunch of gameplay for Judas.
Yeah, so this is from the creator of BioShock, and it looks very BioShock-like.
Ken Levine famously left his studio and said, I want to make smaller games. And this is the result of that. It's supposedly a smaller game than BioShock, although it seems, equal in size. Maybe this is a trick, but it seems like it's going to be very similar to BioShock.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was like, this sort of has the feel of that Atomic Heart game that came out, where it's like, it sort of looks BioShock-like, but it's very obviously not BioShock. And so it's just a game that has that feel, although this is actually made by the creator of BioShock. So
I wonder if we could call that a BioShock-like, where it's a game where you go into a weird city or town or structure, and you have a gun, and your left hand is some sort of thing that does magic stuff.
Yeah, I guess it'll be its own subgenre of like first-person shooter. But.
I mean, it looks great. There's like little train enemies at one part that look really crazy. I loved BioShock Infinite and the original BioShock. I never played BioShock 2 because I heard it was not as good. But BioShock Infinite, I beat in basically like one sitting. I bought it, I played it until like 4 a.m. I went to bed for a couple hours, then I woke up and finished it. And I loved it. And so this seems like it's going to be another game I might just like burn through in a night. Although I guess I don't know how long it is, but I cannot tell you the story of it. It seems like a really weird story. What do you think it's about?
Yeah, I have no idea. It's one of those games that I look at and go, the gameplay seems cool. I don't really know anything about the universe or the story, but maybe I'm just like not watching it as closely as I should be. But yeah, I also played BioShock Infinite. That was the only BioShock game I've played. And I liked it, but I also was like, I maybe don't have the understanding of this that I should from having played the other games. But isn't there an actual like new BioShock coming out as well? Aren't they like somebody's working on that?
It's a rumor.
I think there's a BioShock movie in the works as well.
I remember because I think we talked about it on the podcast because there was a rumor about how they were going to do it because there's obviously they did underwater and the next one was in the sky. I can't remember. I think I did hear a rumor about what the third one would be, and it was interesting. Was it on the moon? I don't remember. It was some other thing where it was an interesting city you were going to be in, but I don't remember what it was. I think you're right, though. I think it is in development.
Yeah. BioShock 4 was announced, but nobody knows anything about it.
Yeah.
Is about where we're at with that, but will that be another one of those situations where it's like the makers of BioShock, but not really the makers of BioShock?
That's sort of how BioShock 2 was, because I don't think Ken Levine was involved in BioShock 2, and that was the one where you played as a Big Daddy. And I feel like people didn't review that one as well. It also came out like right after BioShock, like there was like a short, short time span in between them. And it used like the same engine. It looked very similar. It's kind of like a concurrent story, I think. So I don't know. I mean, I'll be very interested to see what the reception is for that. But that's another one of those games I feel like that new Perfect Dark, where we haven't heard anything about it in forever.
What did you think of this Rise of the Ronin gameplay?
It looked cool. I gotta say, it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, the one thing is, I will say, like, whenever you see like this type of setting, it's hard not to like think of both Ghost of Tsushima and like Sekiro. Yeah. And I feel like this game doesn't quite look as good as either of those games.
But you have a paraglider.
You do have a paraglider, which was cool. And it was cool to see them go from like paraglider to like the back of a horse.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was like a really cool thing. I do wonder, like, I'm still very cautiously optimistic about like how accessible the game will be, because like Neo is famously like known for being difficult.
Yeah.
Also, was this the same developer as Wolong Fallen Dynasty, which was another sort of Souls-like difficult game?
I think you're right. Yeah. Team Ninja.
But yeah, they're known for like challenging combat games, and so I don't know. Sometimes those appeal to me, and sometimes they don't, and it just kind of depends on what mood I'm in, I guess. But other than like Elden Ring, I've not really been able to get into a lot of these. But if this is like the open world, they saw Elden Ring and they were like, "Ooh, what if we did an open world one?"
Yeah,
I could see this doing pretty well for them. But do you have any interest in Dragon's Dogma 2?
Not really. I like the idea of it. I never played Dragon's Dogma, but I did watch the Monster Factory of it, where they made characters in Dragon's Dogma. So I hope they do that for this as well. It seems cool. It seems really... there's like an arcane trickster class that I watched a video on a couple weeks ago. There's a lot of interesting magic in this game, and the classes are not your regular just like fighter, mage, whatever. Like there's some interesting things going on here. But no, I'm probably not gonna play this.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious about it. I know it has like some different hooks to other games of this like genre that people are super into, but also the warning I have heard from other people is a lot of people are going to see this and think, oh, this is a new Skyrim style game, and it is very much not that. And so a lot of people are going to be thrown off by assuming it's going to be that, and then when they get into it and realize it's not, I don't know if they'll be into it or not, but it looks kind of cool to me. And I'm just very curious about it, because I did not play the previous one, and I don't know a lot about it, but I know that like it gets a lot of love from people. So, anything else about the state of play?
They shadow dropped a Silent Hill game, which seems bad, called Short Message. I don't know. Silent Hill, they're just like shotgun blasting all of that IP. Konami is just going crazy with Silent Hill stuff. We haven't talked about it on the podcast, but there's that like weird user interactive Twitch thing that's happening that people are not into. So yeah, we don't have to talk about that really. The other thing really was that Metro game. Metro is a cool universe. It's based on that book series where there was a nuclear war and everybody in the metro system in like Moscow or like Europe or whatever, they're the only ones that survived because they were underground when it happened. And so this is like years after, and there's a society that has grown in the like train stations and stuff, and like the above ground world has a bunch of crazy mutants and whatnot. I played one of these back in the day. Like I think the first time we ever built a computer, I was like, I need something that looks crazy to test this computer out on. So I bought, I want to say Metro Last Light, because it was just like the most beautiful looking game at the time, I thought. And it was crazy to play. It was fun. I didn't beat it. I like the setting of this, and I like that this is VR. This is called Metro Awakening, and I don't know where this is set in the timeline of Metro games, but this seems like a perfect game to be in VR because you're constantly in small spaces, and there's like a railroad thing so you can ride the rails, and there's like a thing about the Metro games is like you have like really janky looking weapons that are kind of cobbled together, and so it's similar to Half-Life Alyx, where you had those guns where you were upgrading and like pulling things off of and pushing things to reload them and stuff. This is another great game where you'll have very interesting looking guns that like reload in different ways and whatnot. But a game I probably will never play, unfortunately, because I don't have a PSVR 2 or a PlayStation 5. But I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad they're still making like crazy single player games like this, which eventually, some point down the road, I probably will have a VR headset, and hopefully I will be able to play a port of this. But today's not that day, but I'm glad they're making these.
Well, I was going to say, are you going to end up getting a PS5 for Final Fantasy?
I've been thinking about it, and I have not definitively said that I won't yet. So it remains to be seen.
It's going to be hard to deny once that game comes out and you're seeing a lot of people playing it.
It's something also, I'm very interested in.
I was at Target the other day and I saw one of the Slim models in stock at Target.
Are those cheaper or are they the same price as PS5s?
I actually don't know. I didn't look at the price. I just was like, oh, hey, you can actually pick one up here.
Man,
that's a nice change of pace from the norm.
But that's going to be something where it's going to be difficult for me to not buy a PS5, but I so far don't own one, so we'll see what happens.
Anything else we've been playing, watching?
Mr. and Mrs. Smith show released on Amazon Prime on Friday, and I watched the first 4 episodes, and I really like it. I liked the original movie. I like a movie. Mm-hmm. I like a romance movie where people have secrets, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith is a great movie because both of them have secrets, and they both become uncovered. So I like that. And they kind of flipped the script on this one where there isn't really a lot of secrets happening. Like they both know that each other are assassins or whatever, spies. But it's a great little show. And I didn't realize this, but it's a real New York show. Like they're always hanging around New York. So you kind of get that feeling, that vibe. And Donald Glover is great. I love Donald Glover from, I forget, Derek Comedy. Was that, or what his,
yeah.
Community was what I really knew him, and then I went back and looked at all of his old stuff. But he's great. The girl from Pen 15 is also great. Maya, I think is her name. But yeah, I recommend this. It's so far I'm loving it. I watched the first 4 episodes. Every episode is pretty great. The first episode especially does a really great job. It's shot beautifully. It's shot by that Hero guy that did, I think, he's done a lot of stuff, but I think he did one of the first season of True Detective. And so it's shot beautifully. All of Donald Glover's clothes also are just like, he is very fashionable and great to look at. And the apartment or like house they give them in New York is just beautiful to look at as well. But
are they fighting each other?
No, they're a team in this, at least for the first 4
episodes.
Isn't
the movie, am I misremembering the movie? Because don't they start out and they're like supposed to go kill each other basically until they realize that they are who they are?
Yeah. The plot of the movie is that like both of them are on their own secretly assassins, but they like fall in love with each other and they pretend to be, both of them are pretending to be regular people. And then the agency turns out like both of their agencies try to get them to kill each other, and then they realize that they're spies. This is the opposite, where they go into the situation both knowing they're spies, and their cover is that they're a married couple, and then they do missions together. And I think eventually there will be some conflict between them, but right now it's just a little love story.
Eventually there will be conflict to the story.
Probably.
I wonder about that, because like is there a lot of action to it? Is it like...
There's a lot of cool spy action. There's a great sequence in the first episode where they get their first mission, and it is to tail a lady, and then she's going to get a package, and then they have to intercept that package and deliver to a place. And that's really all they know. And so that gives them a lot of time to just like hang out. They're like, a lot of the first episode is them tailing this woman, but having conversations. So they're like actively doing something, and you get to watch New York in the background, and they're kind of learning about each other. And then there are sequences where they do like little spy tricks. Like the woman eventually gets the package they need, so they figure out how to get the package, swap it out, and then deliver to a place. And that all stuff is really cool. And then there's also there's been some like gunfight type things. I think there's going to be more of that down the road. But there's been some good action sequences so far in the first 4 episodes.
Maybe it's just the promotional material I saw from this, but it seemed like every shot was just them looking disheveled and sad.
A lot of it is like, because they're both like, they have previous histories we don't really know about, but they have like, they're like ex-CIA or whatever. You don't really know. So they have the skills to do stuff, but they're also just like
a particular set of skills.
They have a particular set of skills. The thing they like signed up for or whatever in quotes with this agency is the high risk missions. And so they're on these missions that sometimes spiral out of control and like crazy stuff happens. But so far at the end of the day, everything has worked out. But I assume in the latter half of the show, some stuff is going to go down. But it's been great. I love it. I'm really enjoying watching it.
Well, so are they releasing that week to week then?
No, it's like The Expanse. They just dumped it all.
How many episodes?
I think 8. So I've watched half of them.
Well, I have my own thing I forgot to put in here, but I've been listening to, I didn't actually realize until I saw it on the subreddit, but there are Red Dwarf books.
Whoa.
And they're apparently just up on YouTube. You can just like find them, and people have put playlists together. And the actor that plays Rimmer is the one that does the like audiobook for them and reads them, and which is like the perfect choice because he's also like really good at doing impersonations of people, in particular like the other people on the show. So when you hear him do his like Lister voice, you could swear that it was Lister.
That's awesome.
So yeah, the first book that I have been listening to is called Infinity Welcomes Careful Drivers, which is like just like the subtitle of like the Red Dwarf book. I think that's the first one. But it like so far the beginning part was like pretty interesting to me because it was like set a little bit before the start of the show, and it sort of gives a little bit more context to like leading into the show, but it's also like really funny and well written in the way that the show is. But then it starts to get into like some of the stuff you saw in the like episodes, like the early episodes of the show. So I'm not sure if it's one of those things where it's a little bit of like, going through stuff you saw in the show. And so that's maybe a little bit less interesting to me, but it is like cool, the idea of being able to get into the characters' heads a little bit more as you're like going through the events of the show. But it's nice to just like, if I'm at work or if I'm driving or if I'm doing like working out or doing other things and not like able to watch the show, I can like sort of still engage with it in some way, and get a little bit more context through like a well done audiobook version of it. And I forget what the other one's called, but there's like more than one book, and I do think they're all just up on YouTube, so you don't even have to like buy them from like Audible or something. Although I did search on Audible and they are on there, and if you search for like an audiobook based off of a British TV show, it will also be like, here's your recommendations. And I realized that there are also like 2 audiobooks for Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. That
is very interesting to me.
And I think they're actually somewhat more recently produced. Like he
made that one this year or last year.
Yeah, just like within the last few years, they've done like 2 of them. Read by Garth Marenghi himself. And there was also, I think there were a couple other like British TV shows that I saw that there were just like audiobooks of. And I was like, oh man, this is like a whole thing. Like I knew that I had already listened to the one based on Toast of London. So like the Stephen Toast one. That one was funny. And I think there's also like a Blackadder one, but that one might just be like you're listening to the show. So I'm not sure about that one. But yeah, check out the Red Dwarf audiobooks. You can just like look them up on YouTube, and I guess they just are there for free. So
wow,
definitely worth it. And you got any parting wisdom for us this week?
Zach, we've welcomed another cat into my household. So apologies if there are a bunch of meowing sounds in the back of this episode. I think there might be. But great to have cats, I gotta say. If you're thinking about getting a cat, I would say just do it, and it's a great time.
Get yourself a cat. And on that note, go ahead and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at Starside Cafe, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.